Hello, I'm Dr. Janice Page with George Washington University Strategic Public Relations Master's Program. And today we're speaking with Shelley Spector. She's president of Spector Corporate Communications in New York City, and she's also the founder and director of the Public Relations Museum, or Museum of Public Relations. So welcome, Shelley.
Thank you very much for having me, Dr. Page.
Well, I'm so glad that you took some time in this beautiful summer day to talk with us. Now, you head up a 26-year-old corporate communications agency that has worked with many global firms in technology, aviation, defense, and various industries. A good place for us to start today would be sharing some of your experiences with strategies, challenges that you've had with clients. I know that some of them have been award-winning, but they've also probably required a lot of thinking and strategizing on your part. So what can you tell us, bring to life for us?
Well, for the most part, our clients have been business to business. And I think that when students are still in school and they're looking to explore what their career opportunities are going to be, and they think about specializations, very rarely do they think about business to business. And business to business means that instead of dealing with the regular consumer as one of your publics, you're dealing with the government or other suppliers, or it's more trade media relations is what you're doing than consumer media relations. And we've dealt with some of the biggest clients on earth, and that's both an opportunity. It's a great opportunity to be creative, and it's also a very big challenge because there's so much riding on the public relations strategy that you're giving them. So I think that one of the most rewarding campaigns that I ever worked on, and still it now appears very quaint, but it was a campaign for AT&T, and I guess it was about 20 years ago at this point. And what it was, and it's something that you and I are both doing today, it's remote working. In fact, that we called it telecommuting. And that was a strange and foreign word. And we said, we'd like to, first it became a human resources campaign. So we wanted to get AT&T employees used to the idea of telecommuting. And that was a way to attract women to the marketplace. So that was one thing. Then we wanted to tell the world that AT&T was such a good employer because it was allowing its employees to telecommute. But then we wanted to bring it to a corporate social responsibility level and tell the world how to telecommute. With AT&T being the world leader in communications, let's position as the world leader in telecommuting. So as you know, the issue of telecommuting will affect pollution, it will affect the labor force, it will affect energy, all kinds of areas in the federal government. And so we worked out public-private partnerships with the Department of Labor, Department of Energy, Department of Health and Human Services, and created an organization called Telecommute America. And here we had, yes, it was about AT&T, but very indirectly. So AT&T is now positioned as a great global citizen, but as the company who really cares about the environment, who cares about labor. I mean, they didn't call it sustainability back then, but it's a quintessential sustainability program because you're affecting every aspect of your workforce, your local community. And it also helped enormously with sales. Why? Because if people are telecommuting, then they need at home, they need a second phone. They'll need the computer network installed. Back then, it wasn't normal to have computers at home or to have a server, have a printer. So this was enormously successful for business and consumer sales for AT&T. So that program won so many awards, I can't count them. In fact, they were enough to be held all these years in a cardboard box downstairs in the basement. But very, very proud of because it affected every single element of AT&T's business operations and its community, its employees, and of course, it was so newsworthy in so many different ways that because we were the first ones doing it, and that's something that when I talk about the big campaigns that we've done, I think riding through every one of them is the importance of being first. And when you're first, then you make news, right? You can't. Nobody remembers the second guy who landed on the moon. So
And
being first. Go ahead.
Can you tell us what year that was?
I think it started in 1998.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Went on from,
right.
Yeah, and went on from there. And there was a full-page spread, 2-page spread in USA Today about it, about how it, and the headline was something like AT&T tells all its employees to stay home today.
I'll bet that there's been some case studies written and published about this. If not, opportunity students.
Yeah.
That's
yeah,
great.
Exactly. Exactly. And
so you touched on that was a great example.
When I was,
Go ahead.
Oh, you go ahead.
Well, I was going to ask you to tell us a little bit more about interesting that you were doing corporate social responsibility or sustainability before it was really labeled and expected, etc. Has that figured into any of your other work?
It has. We haven't called it as such. A lot of companies ask us to promote their sustainability campaigns, but to me, that's not the way to do it. You don't promote it. You just build it into the program. You have the public discover it. If it's sustainable, it's a part of the company's culture. It's embedded in the company's soul. And I think it's just wrong to just promote it and talk about all its sustainability efforts. Some companies now are doing sustainability annual reports, which are okay, I guess. But I'd like to see some new ways of reporting on it, on actually doing it, and actually being less hypocritical about it. What I mean is that I know of some companies who spend an enormous amount of money producing an annual report every year on sustainability efforts, but yet they're trying not to pay taxes in this country. Now, so you can say, okay, all well and good, but I bring this story to Bloomberg Business Week. This is something that they're going to uncover. And that shoots the whole sustainability image right in the guts. I really don't like representing companies that aren't really true to their values.
Right. That reminds me, I just saw a full page ad. I still get the print New York Times from Wells Fargo touting all of their CSR. And I thought, you know what? This isn't exactly what I think you should be doing right now.
I saw the same thing, and what was amazing to me, it was weird because it was a different typeface than the rest of the New York Times.
Yeah.
And why are they listing the fact that their employees spent a million hours volunteering? If the employees spent so much time volunteering, they had the time to go back and look at their business practices. I don't want to hear, these are extraneous. I'll care when you really pay attention to your day-to-day business and don't try to screw your customers, which you've continued to do. I give them credit for their new tagline, which is something like born in 1865 or established 18 and reestablished. Okay,
Right.
cool.
Right.
But if they don't live up to that, again, they're done. And next week, I happen to be talking to one of the head comms leaders at Wells Fargo.
Oh.
And I can't wait to talk to her about it.
Oh, well, we'll have to follow up with you if it's appropriate. Thank you so much. You know, Shelley, I was going to move on to the museum unless you wanted to mention any other examples from your work. Shall we do that? Shall we move on to the museum now?
Sure.
Okay, great.
Sure.
Well, you know, you founded it in 1997. Wonderful that you did all of that great information collected and continuing to be collected. So we've already explored the website in this class, but we'll be returning to it after viewing this interview. And I'd like to know what in particular this time you would like to call the students' attention to read or engage in.
Okay. There's a couple of years ago, Professor Parnell brought his class at GW up to the museum. And we had a very, very interesting discussion about why there were no people of color in the museum. This was 2 or 3 years ago. And why there were none in the textbooks. And whoa, absolutely. We're trying to draw more diverse students into the industry and keep them here. We're trying to position PR as a potential career for them. Yet, where are all the Black PR and Latino PR pioneers? And so we've been spending the last 2 or 3 years collecting and exhibiting about the lives of wonderful PR pioneers that are not in the textbooks. And I think they're getting to be more and more. Perhaps in your most recent book, you covered them. There's, for instance, a woman that nobody had ever heard of named Inez Kaiser, who is the first Black woman to open a PR firm. And we thought that she wasn't around any longer, just knew about her name because of the scholarship with AEJMC. But it turned out that she was very much alive. At the time that we found her, she was 96, living in a nursing home. So I was able to interview her before she died at age 98. And we've been working with her son to create a permanent exhibit within the museum so people can see what she did in 1957 as the first Black woman in a PR agency. There are many other people like Ophiel Duke. So what we've done in the PR Museum online is we have about 10 bios of PR pioneers who are not in any textbook, and there's no one place for it. So we're hoping to build on this bio. We now have on the museum page, we have the recorded events from the last 2 years of Black PR history and Latino PR history. And there's also video of PR women who changed history. So these are fascinating, inspirational people.
Right.
And if we think it's challenging to be in PR today, imagine what it was like for Inez Kaiser in 1957, or Moss Kendricks in 1945, or Ophiel Dukes, who you're probably familiar with, in the 60s. And now I'm working on a book with the PRSA Foundation called Diverse Voices. So where I'm personally speaking with about 40 diverse leaders in public relations today.
Excellent.
And interviewing them on their challenges, their insights about their careers, looking back, what advice they give students today. And my God, these stories, just amazing. There's a big difference between what men and women of color have gone through. It's also a big difference in the generationally, because today there's a lot more support for diverse students and those who are venturing out to the PR field. But I think that the PR Museum website has now devoted a tremendous amount of content to the story of the diverse PR pioneer.
Right. Thank you so much for highlighting that for us. By the way, do you know when your book will eventually, the target date for being published?
It will be available October 5th
Oh,
at the PRSA International Conference in Austin.
oh, okay, great. I'm so glad that you mentioned that. We'll look forward to that. And so finally, I don't want to take too much of your time, but thank you so much for being a good friend to our program. We're so grateful you spent the time today. So finally, and I think this will be well attended to, what advice do you have for our PR master students as they pursue their studies and as now and upon graduating to secure a rewarding position in the field?
I can say that there's been no better time to get a job in public relations than there is now, and but it doesn't mean that it's there are many opportunities available, but you have to be very good, and you have to show expertise more than ever in understanding. I think in understanding news. Very big on this. Now I know it's not very popular to be, you and I like reading the paper version of the New York Times. I actually hold classes in how to fold the New York Times for the subway. Unfortunately, I find that if kids are following the news, they may be following it off and on online. That's just not the way to do it. It has to become a daily habit. You can read the Times online, but I much prefer the paper version. But you have to become a news junkie first and foremost for so many reasons. One is to show an understanding of current events because your clients are very much concerned with the current events for their own businesses. But two, how to make news, because that's what we do as public relations people. We have to enact newsworthy policies with our clients so that they can make news and reporters will write favorably about them. So how to understand the news that's out there, but also how to make news for your client, positive news. I think that you can't state enough how important it is to know how to write, and writing news, the news writing style is the most important style. Writing a news release, knowing the journalism format. I strongly suggest that students take a news writing reporting class. This is no substitute for that. It really isn't. And I don't think you can write press releases unless you know how to write a news story. Thirdly, you really have to understand how the media works, not just how to pitch a story, but how to talk to them, what is of interest to them, what are some brilliant reporters out there, and understand the difference between news and opinion and analysis. And particularly during this period of time before the midterm elections, we've never seen anything like this, the political environment. And when you walk into an interview today, you're probably going to be asked about the midterm elections. And especially, a school based down in DC with some political science entwined in your program, you can bet that agencies who are interested in politically minded students should be looking at GW, and your students should have knowledge and interest, most of all curiosity, in the political scene today.
Mm-hmm. I think you are speaking directly to our students because I know them, and that's very much going to resonate with them. All of this advice has been invaluable. They've hopefully heard it before, but hearing it from you makes it just the more meaningful to them. So I guess we'll say goodbye for now. But Shelley Spector, I want to thank you so much for the time and the wisdom that you shared with us today.
And thank you so much, Dr. Page, and I hope all your students have a wonderful semester.